Hello and welcome. I've decided to put 3 more videos about how to use VPN servers and various other internet service providers' content to your advantage. So video 4, we talk about how to stream/download TV from other countries without using a VPN client. This helps improve your download content speeds. Video 5 is how to set up a PTP VPN or a private proxy. This is how you can update region-locked country software or bypass school or work-restricted websites. You can also access your home network through the internet. Video 6 basically covers how to set up an OpenVPN client, and basically that has the same advantages of video 5, but it is a more secure system, however is more difficult to set up.
This is video 6, how to set up a OpenVPN a server and a client. The difference between OpenVPN and PPTP VPN, as discussed in video 5, is that OpenVPN in theory should be quicker when you're trying to access stuff on your home network, just due to the way the information is routed. It is, however, more complicated to set up, and it's also the reason why the video has been split. Video 6 has been split up into 2 parts. So part 1 of video 6 talks about how to install DD-WRT on your router, and this includes important information about making sure your router memory is big enough to run VPN as a server. And we also talk about how to create security certificates. These are the encryption keys required to be running when you set up an OpenVPN style server. Part 2 of the video talks about how to set up an OpenVPN client on a single PC, and also how to set up an OpenVPN client network so you can connect your PC, TV, Wi-Fi devices to it using a DD-WRT router as a client. So you need to set the server up first in video 1 in order to be able to set up the clients in video part 2. So I'm going to start talking about how to install DD-WRT onto your router. So some of you may have already have DD-WRT installed. However, there is some important information here to bear in mind. Your router might not have enough internal memory to actually install OpenVPN as a server on it. So you need to be a bit careful here. So if you don't have a router yet, that's fine. You need to purchase one. You can go to the DD-WRT website and go to the router database as shown on the screen. I already have a Linksys E3200, and you can type in E3200 and it'll come up with whether it's supported or not. You can then click on the firmware version, as it shows here that it is revision 17.201, and then it takes you through to the different path revisions. Now I'm not quite sure what all the different revisions are, but you need to download a mini version. In this case I've downloaded the one shown on the screen, and a big version, as you can see at the top of the screen, as the ones to install on my machine. Now, if you haven't got a router yet, then the DD-WRT does list off a list of supported routers and also non-supported routers. So the above website shows the list of supported devices. The above website shows you the list of incompatible devices. Now, it should be taken note of that in some cases, some routers, there might be multiple versions of the same router, and therefore may or may not be compatible. So a really good example here is the E4200 router from Linksys. It's both on the incompatible and compatible lists. So the compatible one has got a Broadcom chip in it, and it's called a Q87-E4200 router. Equally, there's another one here called a Q87-E4200 router version 2, but it's got a Marvel CPU on it, and this is on the incompatible list of routers. So the Linksys E4200 is on both compatible and incompatible lists. So that's something you've got to really bear in mind before you start flashing any router, just to make sure exactly which version you've got. So in my case, I've got an E3200 router, so I go into my router, click on administration and then firmware upgrade. I then click on the browser icon. I then select my mini version of DD-WRT first. You must install mini before you install anything else, and click on open. Then click on start upgrade, and then it will tell you that the system is rebooting after the installation. When you boot up your router with DD-WRT on for the first time, your username and password have been reset. So sometimes the default username is root and the default password is admin, or the username and password is both admin, as shown on the screen. Okay, at this point, if you wish, you can go into the administration tab and the management tab and change your router username, password if you wish, and then click on apply settings. Okay, you now need to flash your router to the big version of DD-WRT. So you go back to administration, firmware upgrade, and click on browse. You select the big version of DD-WRT and click on open, and then you click on upgrade. This big version of DD-WRT will take a bit longer to install. As you can see, in this case, it's going to take 274 seconds before it's fully installed. The unit will then reboot, and then you should be able to get back to the setup and basic setup screen. In order to avoid any conflicts with any clients connecting to this server, it's better to change the local IP address of the server router to something that's not normally used. So, for example, in this case, we've set the router to 192.168.54.1. So instead of being 192.168.1.1 as normally you would set your router up to be, I've chosen these numbers because it's not in its normal range. So it helps prevent conflicts, which is a critical thing when you're setting up a VPN network. So now we need to establish if your router's got enough NVRAM installed on it to successfully set up OpenVPN as a server. So you need to go to the Administrations tab, Commands tab, and type in NVRAM show, like a vertical slash grep space dd, and click on Run Commands. It'll then come back with the size of your memory. So in this case, it's 40,946 bytes on my router, and there's 20,000 bytes left. So from the DD-WRT website, it tells me that if you overfill your NVRAM, you'll likely break your router, which basically means you'll overload it, and you'll have to search on the internet how to fix that. So I strongly recommend you don't do that. So it tells you also that using a key size of 1024-bit encryption, you'll need about 5,200 bytes available NVRAM on the server side. Or if you're using 20,048, you need about 6,000 bytes of NVRAM on the server side to support the easy web-based programming that I'm going to show in this video. Okay, so I'm not quite sure how you establish how much NVRAM there is on a router, but in my case, the E3200 router there has got 64 megabytes of RAM and 16 megabytes of flash. So they don't seem to correlate with the NVRAM, so I'm not quite sure how you correlate the NVRAM to your router. Anyway, moving on, you need to download, in order to encrypt your VPN system, you need to have a VPN key, and you need to basically download the system from OpenVPN.net. You then click on downloads and then find the version of the software you're using. So in this case, I'm using Windows Installer 64-bit, and I download the software from the website. Make sure you tick all the boxes as you're installing it and click on next. You then need to, after you've installed the software, you go to the directory you saved it in. In my case, I saved it in C drive in program files in a directory called OpenVPN, which I believe was the default directory. Then you need to click on easy-RSA and click on properties. You are going to then make the properties of the easy RSA directory. You're going to untick the box, which is read-only. So that means you can then change files inside that directory. For some reason, when you download it, it's automatically set as read-only. You want to be able to read and write to that directory. Okay, go into the easy RSA directory. You then click on the vars.bat and then click on edit. This will automatically open up the notepad on your computer. As you can see here highlighted in the circle, there are a number of key parameters. So if you imagine the security system on the router is a secure building, in order to get into through the front door into the secure foyer or reception, you need to have certain credentials. So in this case, you set your country code, your key province, your city, your organization, your email address, and various other details there to whatever you wish. Now, you can write pretty much what you want in here. However, you must change it from the default, otherwise the system isn't secure. So the important thing here is to also remember to put in the module path. In this case, I've put in c:/temp/vpn files. You then need to go to the file and save to save the information back to the text file. You then go to your start prompt, type in cmd for the command prompt or the DOS prompt. You then right click on the command prompt at the top of the screen there and click on run as administrator. You must run the DOS prompt as an administrator, otherwise the following steps will not work. Now you must enter DOS as an administrator, otherwise this will simply not work. If you just go in as just a normal DOS prompt, the encryption keys that you're about to create will no longer work properly. So you first need to go to the directory you saved your stuff, which is in this case is the C drive cd/program files/openvpn/easy-RSA. Press enter, then type in dir, which demonstrates you're now into that directory. Then you need to rename the vars.bat.sample file into vars.bat. So you just type in rename vars.bat.sample space vars.bat. Then you just type it in as the next command vars vars. Then clean-all and press enter. Then you type in vars again and then type in build-/-ca and hit the enter key. So by default it pulls up the directories, the information as stored in that notepad file we had earlier. So I left it to the default, in this case the US, and every time it prompts you, you just press enter. As you can see at the bottom half of the screen, I've pressed enter for US and enter for CA and San Francisco and so on. So all that information is automatically set. The important thing here is when it comes up with change me name or change me, and then you have to put in server. So that's the most important thing you must remember, and that's highlighted in the red circle. Okay, what you should find is that after completing that, there should be some extra files saved in your easy-RSA keys directory, as shown on the screen. So we now have a file called CA, and it's a CRT file. So make a note of that. We need that CA cert file for both the server and the client to access the VPN. So that's the server on the router that needs this file, and any person that's going to connect to the router using the encryption needs this file as well. We then go back to DOS again, we type in vars again, we then type in build-key-server, we then follow the prompts, and again we just press enters in this case. When it's prompted, we say yes to the certificate is to be certified until the certain date. In this case, it's 3,650 days away from the point I created this certificate, and you commit to yes and press enter, and then you should see the database updated. Now you should also have some more additional files in your easyrsa/keys directory. So you now find you've got a file that called blank CRT, which is a CRT file. You'll also have a blank file called blank key file, and you've also got the CA file made a few moments ago. You then go back to DOS again. You type in vars, then you type in build-key space client 1. You then have to type in, you press enter for all of the prompts, but the most important thing is where it says common name, you now need to put your client 1's name. So in this case I've written in Bob. You then confirm saying yes, and now you'll find that you've got client 1 key for Bob, a person called Bob, and a client 1 cert file there. So we're now building up all the files we need. These are the keys to the building, in effect, that we're building up here. So client 1 needs to have a cert and a key files in order to access the router. We then repeat this for vars. We type in vars again and build-key space client 2, and then we can put in the common name as Jane, and again we just say yes and yes when prompted. And now you see that we have got a second client called client 2 with a CRT file and a key file, and you just repeat this as many times as necessary until you have got as many names or many access keys as necessary to access that router using OpenVPN. So I would recommend that even if only one person will be using the system to connect securely, that you set up 2 or 3 at this time, because it makes life easier later. If you're troubleshooting, it means you can try logging on as client 1 as Bob or client 2 as Jane, etc. Just makes troubleshooting a little bit easier. Okay, you then go back to the DOS prompt and type in vars, and then you type in build-dh. Now this will come up with the following statements, and then it will take a few moments to create an encryption code. Now it says this is going to take a long time. Now on my Intel i5 processing machine, it only took maybe 20 to 30 seconds, if that, to create the encryption. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about the fact that it's going to take a long time, because it doesn't. And now we have got a new file called DHPEM, which is for the server. Okay, so now we have all the files necessary to set up the OpenVPN server. So you need to go back to your router, go to Services, and go to VPN. You need to click on OpenVPN server/daemon and click on Enable. So now we've created all of the encryption keys necessary, we need to start putting them into the server side of the DD-WRT router. So we go back to the router again, we go back to the OpenVPN server screen in the router. We've already clicked on Start OpenVPN Servers Enabled. We now need to start setting it up. So we start saying the start type is system with the configure via GUI, which is general user interface, which is basically the web browser. We set up the server mode as router tunnel. The network, so my router name is 192.168.1.1, but we need to make sure that there isn't confusion between the VPN network, which is a which is a simulated network versus the real network. So we put in here, for example, 192.168.66.0, which I took directly from the DD-WRT website example. The net mask is 255.255.255.0, and the port is 1194, which is the default. The tunnel protocol is UDP. The encryption cipher is Blowfish CBC. The hash algorithm is 256, SHA 256. The advanced options are enabled, LZO compression enabled, redirect default gateway. We'll be talking about that later in the presentation, but it's all to do with whether you redirect the website of the client through the server, or do you let them just go straight on the internet from their own location. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Allow the client to connect, allow client to connive. So this allows a client 1 to be able to see client 2 and talk to each other, and allow duplicate CN. So this allows the client 1 to log on 2 different machines if they so wish. The tunnel MTU setting is 1500, which is the default, and the MSX fix / fragment of the tunnel I've put in is 1390. And I've also put in a TLS cipher as AES128 SHA. These settings were set up because I was having difficulties when setting up the client on a PC and or a router to connect. So I wanted to have the same settings so a PC could connect to the server, but also a DD-WRT enabled client router to access the same VPN network. And this was the only settings I could find that would suit both. There are additional fields that we need to fill in the DD-WRT server, and these are the encryption keys. So we need now to copy and paste the encryption key files we've created in MS-DOS on the DOS prompt, and copy and paste it into the DD-WRT website. So first of all, we'll do the DH1024 PEM file. So we go to the directory, we right click on the DH1024 directory, and then we click on edit. The clicking on edit will open the encryption key as a text file in Notepad, and we need to copy and paste the information from a number of these files into the web-based GUI for DD-WRT. So in this example, the DH1024, we need to copy all the dashes before the beginning DH parameters, all the way to the end DH parameters, and all those last dashes as well. We need to copy and paste them into the DD-WRT web GUI. The blank.crt file is a little bit different. We need to copy and paste again, but there's a lot more information in there. We just again need the stuff from the beginning of certificate to the end of certificate. So we need all the dashes before and after as shown in the red box. And basically you copy the files in a zone. So the public server cert is just the blank.crt file. The CA cert is the ca.cert file. The private server key is the blank.key file, and the dh1024.pem file is what goes into the DHPEM. So you need to have the begin certificate and the end certificate and all the dashes after, at the beginning and the end. So you leave the other fields blank for the time being. So we need to fill in the additional config file. So what we say here is that the router's IP address, which is normally 192.168.1.1, but we renamed it as 192.168.54.0 earlier in the presentation, in order so that any client routers don't get confused with the server router. Again, also, when the client router or client attached to the server, we need to make sure we allocate them a number. So in this case, we've allocated them a range of 192.168.66. something, which is why we also say there. So this can be a little bit confusing with the numbers, but basically the reason why the numbers are chosen is so that normally when other people log into the server, you don't get a conflict, which is critical. And it's critical for a VPN not to have conflicts. So here we go, you can see the additional configuration data filled into the text file there, and I will put this information at the bottom of the YouTube description. We then index down the screen after filling in the text boxes and click on Apply Settings. And then we go to the Administration tab and Commands, and we have to put some information into the text box here. So we need to put the iptables commands that's listed at the top of the screen in here, and this allows communication between the internal network, which we're calling 192.168.54.1, to the VPN network, which is 192.168.666.1. Okay, so after we've typed the text in, we click on Save Firewall. It's then been saved as a firewall. Then you go to Status, then OpenVPN, and then you should have, if successful, server-success local address 192.168.66.1, remote address 192.168.66.1, and connection success, local address, etc., and remote address there. You'll also notice this, there's a whole bunch of text there about clients connecting and disconnecting, and this gets filled in automatically as time goes by. You then, the important thing here is if you're trying to do this all in one day and trying to set up your client and server in one day, it's important to know that the encryption keys that you've just created, the .crts, etc., they only work if you have gone past midnight GMT or midnight UTC, so that's midnight in the UK. If you haven't gone past midnight in the UK since you created the encryption keys, then you'll have difficulties logging in. So you can either wait for a day or two in order to go past midnight in the UK, or you can set the time in your router to UTC. So you do that by going to Setup, Basic Setup, and then UTC. After a week, you could just put this back to your own local time zone if you wish. It's not a problem, but if you're trying to do this whole setup in one day, it's critical. So depending on what you're trying to do with your network, OpenVPN network, you may choose to redirect all your traffic through the VPN server. So if you choose to redirect all your VPN traffic through the server, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, when you're connected to the OpenVPN server, you will appear to be in the same place as the VPN server. So if your VPN server is in the US, once you're connected to the VPN server, you will appear to be to everyone on the internet that you are in the US. If you choose not to redirect web traffic, then you can still access your home network, anything attached to your home network, using the VPN client, VPN server. However, you will appear to be on the internet wherever you happen to be in the world. So we are now going to set this up, assuming that you wish to appear to be where your VPN server is located. So you go to the redirect default gateway and click on enable as opposed to disable. So enabled gives the impression you are in the country that your server is located. Another important critical step is we need to go to the Administration tab and go to the Commands tab and type in an extra line, which is iptables -t-nat -a post-routing, as shown on the screen, in order to successfully allow the internet access through the OpenVPN server. We also then need to save that and reboot the router. So that's the end of video 6 part 1. So in the video we check the amount of NV RAM on the server router to make sure that you are capable of running a OpenVPN on the router you wish to. We've created some security certificates or encryption keys. We've set up an OpenVPN server, and we've chosen to redirect web traffic through the server or not, if that was the case. Part 2 of the video talks about how to set up the OpenVPN clients, and that will be the conclusion of the video, part 2.